people. Hi. Hello. Hello. Ladies of the Middle East, please. No, it's not. I knew. I'm so light-footed. Yeah, I know the trumpet. I didn't hear the trumpets or Kirsten's trombone. Yeah, exactly. All right. Mr. Schwinghammer, you want to share with the rest of the class?
No, you would not like it.
I would not like it. Okay, good. Thank you. All right. Sorry. Good afternoon. I have some travels to share with you. The Secretary General will be traveling to Nairobi, Kenya, and that he will leave tomorrow afternoon, where he will take part in the UN Civil Society Conference. This year's conference aims to support the preparations for the Summit of the Future. It is being held on the African continent for the first time and will include representatives from some 3,000 non-governmental organizations as well as academia. On Friday, the Secretary General will deliver remarks during the conference's closing session as the world faces conflicts, inequalities, or the climate crisis, which Kenya, as you know, is currently experiencing with extreme weather and flood triggered by El Niño. The Secretary General will highlight the need to revitalize multilateralism so that it reflects today's reality. And a multilateralism where the contributions of civil society is recognized as central, not as an afterthought. Also on Friday, the Secretary General will be holding a press encounter at the UN office in Nairobi. You'll be able to watch that live on our UN Web TV platform. We will have further travel to announce later this week. A little operational update to share with you from Gaza. As of now, no goods have come in for our use for our humanitarian operations, either through the Karim Shalom or the Rafah crossings into the Gaza strips. We are continuously engaging with all involved about the resumption of the entry of goods, including fuel, so that we can begin managing incoming supplies. However, the situation remains extremely fluid, and we continue to confront a range of challenges, including active military operations. Our colleagues at the Humanitarian Affairs Office tell us that a daily average of 48 trucks and more than 160,000 liters of fuel entered Gaza via the Rafah crossing between the 1st and the 5th of May. We need all of that fuel to sustain our humanitarian operations for the civilians in the Gaza Strip who so desperately need it. Also, our health partners tell us that all key medical facilities in Rafah could soon become inaccessible or inoperable. For example, one of the 3 hospitals in Rafah, Al-Najjar, had to be abruptly vacated yesterday as it was located in the areas subject to the evacuation orders sent out by the Israeli Defense Forces. According to the World Health Organization, this facility has the only dialysis department still operating in Gaza and is a lifeline to 200 patients who need that dialysis service. We remain committed to providing aid to people regardless of where they are. Our teams are still in Rafah, which is where well over 1 million people, including some 600,000 children, have been sheltering. We're also extending our presence northward to assist as we can families who are on the move. In a statement released yesterday, our head of the Humanitarian Affairs Office and Emergency Relief Coordinator, Martin Griffiths, said that civilians in Gaza must be protected and have their basic needs met, whether they are on the move or whether they stay, and those who evacuate must have enough time to do so, as well as safe route and passage and places to go. Meanwhile, Philippe Lazzarini, the Commissioner General of UNRWA, said in a tweet that a protest that took place yesterday at UNRWA's headquarters in East Jerusalem was nothing less than harassment, intimidation, and vandalism. The protest was called by an elected member of the Jerusalem municipality and took place under the watch of the Israeli police. Mr. Lazzarini said this has nothing to do with freedom of expression. Host countries, in this case Israel, are expected to protect UN premises and operations at all times, and a protest has been lodged. This, just in Security Council this morning, the Undersecretary General for Political and Peace-Building Affairs, Rosemary DiCarlo, briefed the Security Council in close consultations on Resolution 1559, which, as you know, refers to Lebanon. Yes, very good. Just on Guatemala, I want to tell you that the Secretary General is deeply concerned about the continued prosecution of a former official of the International Commission Against Impunity in Guatemala, and that person is Claudia Gonzalez, and she is under continued prosecution for her activities related to her work for that body. The Secretary General stresses the need to guarantee Ms. Gonzalez's right to a fair trial. The Secretary General recalls the important contribution that the Commission and its personnel made to the fight against corruption and impunity in Guatemala. He reiterates his call on the Guatemalan authorities, in accordance with the agreement between the UN and the government establishing the Commission, to protect the personnel of the Commission from abuse, threats, reprisals, or acts of intimidation because of their work for that very Commission. Turning back to East Africa, the International Organization for Migration is working with government and partners to respond to the impacts of the floods in East Africa by providing life-saving assistance to the impacted populations there. In Burundi, for example, IOM has provided emergency shelter, blankets, dignity kits, and other items to over 5,000 people and is supporting the relocation of those affected to safer and less flood-prone areas. In Kenya, IOM and its partners are working to deliver shelter and essential household items to support 39,000 people in the most severely flood-impacted parts of the country. In neighboring Somalia, the IOM is targeting approximately 240,000 people with shelter material and other essential items and services. Also in Ethiopia, IOM has supported over 70,000 men, women, and children impacted by floods across the Somali and Oromia region. The agency says that at this critical moment, the call remains urgent for sustainable efforts to address human mobility spurred by changing climate. And turning to Zambia, while there is not flood there is drought. We and our partners launched an appeal yesterday to mobilize resources for the drought response. This comes after the government declared a national drought disaster at the end of the month. The $228 million appeal seeks to assist 4.6 million people between May and December of this year. Zambia is experiencing its driest agricultural season in more than 40 years, resulting in crop losses, increased livestock deaths, and worsening poverty. Nearly half of the 2 million hectares of maize planted in that country have been destroyed by the drought, and according to authorities, cereal production is forecasted to decline by 50% this year. More than 9 million people, nearly half of the population, are food insecure and in need of humanitarian assistance. That's what government data is telling us. The Emergency Relief Coordinator, Martin Griffiths, released $13.5 million in April this year from the Central Emergency Response Fund to shore up support for the El Niño-induced drought in southern Africa. $5.5 million of the SURF allocation went to Zambia, in addition to an earlier $2.5 million for earlier allocation. And an international day today, and this is a peculiar one because it is in fact celebrated over 2 days. So you can mark it today or you can mark it tomorrow. And that is the day's called Time of Remembrance and Reconciliation for those who lost their lives during the Second World War. Everyone is invited to observe one or both of these days and pay tribute to all victims of the Second World War. Do you know why it's marked over 2 days? Because victory in Europe is on the 8th and also on the 9th of May, according to the calendar in Moscow. That history lesson is done for today. Edith, letter.
Thank you, Steph. Can you give us an update on the amount of fuel and food that's left in Gaza as of, well, it's certainly late afternoon, early evening there, because Mr. De Domenico yesterday said fuel was probably going to run out by late today.
Yeah, it is. I don't have an update on the food. On the fuel, it remains a trickle. And what happens in these situations is that our humanitarian colleagues are begin to ration it out, to stretch it for as long as possible. But it is clear that it is a matter of hours, if not days, of where we will have no more fuel. But I can tell you that there are extensive and very intensive discussions going on between ourselves, the Israeli authorities, and the Egyptian authorities to ensure that fuel comes in at the earliest possible moment.
There's also a question of the fact that if aid comes in through Kerem Shalom, there's no Palestinian trucks on the other side to deliver it, because apparently the drivers all fled after the latest violence.
No, I mean, the challenges remain that it is true that sometimes, and you have aid that comes in from the Israeli side, but we are not able to move it as quickly as it may come in, for the fact that, as we've seen, we had seen a couple of days ago, Hamas rockets falling near the crossing, continuing Israeli military activities. And also what we had talked about is often an issue of safety for our own personnel.
And just to follow up on the UNRWA incident in East Jerusalem, did I miss exactly what kind of damage was caused?
No, I think there was some external damage to the gates. Benno, then Ibtisam, then Linda, and Deji.
Oops. Thank you, Steph. So, just to get that straight, you said no goods have entered Kerem Shalom as of now, though Israel said they reopened the crossing, right?
Correct.
So what is happening at the crossing right now? It seems that you contradict what the Israelis say. But maybe there's a reason for
listen,
that.
I will let you do the analysis. I think people, and I can't speak for the Israeli side, they're speaking about what they're doing. What I'm speaking about is what is going on the Gaza side, and our inability to get things in. I've checked again that with various people, and I was in meetings this morning, that no goods have come in for us to be able to use. Okay, Ibtisam.
Thank you, Steph. First, to follow up on the UNRWA attack, I was struck actually by the fact that whether Mr. Lazzarini or you will describe it as a demo where, in fact, if you look at the video that he posted, it's an attack on your facilities. And the fact that the people didn't get in, it was probably, I don't know. But I guess my question here is, do you actually condemn it? And
Of
then
course.
also...
Yeah. And as I said, we've protested directly to the host, to the Israelis, who have a responsibility as a host to ensure the protection of UN premises.
Are you afraid, or does the Secretary General does he feel that the security of the UNRWA UN personnel, specifically UNRWA and the High Commissioner, is actually in danger there in Jerusalem, given the amount of attacks and the latest attack on your facility?
Well, we have seen at different points small groups of people demonstrating very actively, loudly, and we saw what happened yesterday. We take the necessary security precautions. The Israelis, as the hosts of any UN premises, have a responsibility to ensure our safety. And all of this is extremely concerning indeed.
Sorry, last question. Can you confirm? I mean, I was reading local reports from Gaza. Could you confirm that the Israeli authorities asked your international staff or part of your international staff to leave Rafah?
No, I'm not aware that they were asked to. I mean, our international staff has remained in Rafah. Obviously, they're moving. Whether individuals may be moving to ensure their own safety, and I don't have that kind of granularity, but they have not left. They have not left Rafah. Linda, Deji, Benny, Maggie.
Thank you, Steph. Earlier you said that there was active military operations going on that were impacting aid. I believe that's what you said. I was just wondering if you had more information about what kind of active military.
Well, I mean, we've seen the tanks. We've seen Israeli operations. We've seen fighting. I mean, I have to tell you, there are continuing military activities, right, between Hamas and Palestinian militants and the Israelis. We are not running a sort of military observation mission, and I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of my colleagues on the ground, right? If they hear gunshots, if they hear rocket fires, if they hear mortar fire, if they hear tank rounds, their priorities for their own safety and for the safety of people they are trying to help. We're not in the business, we're not there to observe and report back on who's doing the fighting. Deji.
Yeah, a follow-up with Benno's question. Let me get some details. Have there been any UNA trucks arrived at Kerem Shalom border crossing, waiting for
Nothing
getting
has
in
come.
there?
No UN trucks have come in.
Yeah,
as far as know.
I mean, have they been?
I mean,
there?
there are UN supplies that have been there are on the other side that we have not been able
Because
to process.
I feel it's consistent actually. I mean, the Israeli part, they said they're reopening the entry again, but trucks are already arriving at the crossing and they need a thorough security inspection. Is that the reason why?
You should. I mean, there are other parties engaged in this whole issue. You should speak to them to get the details of exactly what they're doing. I can only speak to what we're doing.
So for humanitarian operation here in Gaza for UN, what is the biggest challenge now? Is that because
The biggest challenge is that there's conflict still going on. The biggest challenge is that, there's fighting still going on. That's the biggest challenge. We're trying to run a humanitarian operation in the middle of a conflict zone, right? Where the civilians are not protected, where civilian infrastructure is not respected, where hospitals have become military zones. Those are the challenges.
Sorry, one more question. Any update on the role UN is going to play in the temporary pier?
Nothing to share with you at this point. Benny, what can I share with you?
Yeah, on a different topic. Is there any, it was asked before of the...
Can you put your microphone a little closer?
It was asked before of the General Assembly spokeswoman. Is there any assessment by the OLA as to the legality of the UN proposed, of the General Assembly proposed resolution? Because in the past, Timor-Leste, South Sudan, the procedure was according to the UN Charter that first the Security Council recommends and then the General Assembly. Is there any assessment by OLA as to what is the legal status there?
The path to membership is clearly laid out in the Charter for full membership, right? There are several drafts of a General Assembly resolution floating around, as you know as well, if not more than I do. it is up to member states to decide on what text they will adopt. As always, we will then look at the text that is adopted and see what roles are assigned to by the Secretary General. Maggie.
Thanks, Steph. On the UNRWA headquarters in Jerusalem, I seem to recall a while back that Israel was trying to evict UNRWA from the headquarters. So was there any staff actually present in the building during
I
this
mean,
protest?
it was nighttime. I think there was security staff and support staff, but it is a functioning office.
So they're still in it,
Yeah.
they haven't been evicted?
That's correct.
Okay, and then, sorry, the Biden administration paused a shipment of bombs last week. It's come to light this week. 1,800 2,000-pound bombs and 1,700 500-pound bombs to Israel that they're pausing. Any reaction?
I mean, as we've said, I think the global arms trade is sadly growing, and I think all those countries that export weapons have a responsibility to see how and when they are used. Benno, and then Stefano. I don't know if there's anybody on the screen. Wave.
Thank you. So I have some questions about the Palestine resolution in the GA on Friday. You were asked
too.
to.
Me too.
Maybe you can answer mine though. So you need to publish a legal opinion about the resolution, and I asked myself if it's produced already, and if you can tell us.
What do you mean I need to publish a legal opinion?
The Secretariat is asked, as far as I know, to publish a legal opinion. What specific rights Palestine would get in the GA if the resolution is adopted?
Let's see
And
what
I asked myself what that.
there are drafts floating around. Once a draft, if and when a draft becomes a resolution, and there is a task assigned to the Secretary and the Secretary General, we will move on from there.
Can you confirm that there is a task assigned already?
Because there is no resolution.
To my knowledge, you have to do it before it's adopted.
I have.
actually. Okay, then let me ask you something else. The Ukraine Peace Summit in Switzerland. Do you think the United Nations should be in the room in Switzerland?
I don't have at this point anything to share with you about
tomorrow?
participation.
But tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
Didn't you say earlier that there will be travel announcements tomorrow?
Yes, but it will not. It's not to any places that will surprise you.
That's right.
Okay, as always, Stefano, and then
Thank you,
Christian.
Stéphane. When did Secretary General Guterres last speak to President Biden?
When did he last speak to President Biden? He saw him in a bilateral at some point somewhere. I'll have to check. I don't know it off the top of my head. Madame.
Just actually a question on DRC. We've been getting regular updates on peacekeeper withdrawals and so on. Is there any humanitarian operation left there
Yes,
on the part of the UN?
the
and could we get
humanitarian
updates?
operation presence is separate from the peacekeeping mission.
Okay,
presence.
because we haven't seen any humanitarian
we'll
updates
try to
there
get
in a
you
while.
something.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And Stefano, that is not to say that various parts of the organization, including Secretary General, remain in touch with the U.S. government. All right, anyone else? Thank you. Fahan will be with you for the foreseeable future, or at least for the next. I will be traveling.